Hey guys, I am back and some guy is blowing leaves outside or something, so if you hear a loud noise, I'm sorry. But I'm talking about probability and dependent events. This is lesson 94 for you. 8th grade was also learning this lesson. It's lesson 83, so I just decided to do them both at once. So dependent events and independent events are completely different. I want you to think about what it means to be independent. That means nothing else is responsible for you, right? Like you're on your own, you're doing your own thing. Dependent means you are dependent on someone else. So how that relates to events and probability is an independent event is not affected by another event that happened before. For instance, if I flip a coin and get heads, and then I flip it again, the heads doesn't disappear. That second flip does not depend on the first. You could still get heads, it doesn't matter because it's not going to be affected by your other flip. I hope that makes sense. But if I'm choosing teams and I pick Kiana for my team, now the other team captain cannot pick Kiana because she's not available. So their options are dependent on that first choice. So it depends, it depends on what kind of problem it is, but you have to be able to tell, is this dependent or is it independent? So let's look at our first example. Example 1 says there are 2 red, 3 white, and 4 blue marbles. Okay, so this is like super patriotic. So how many total marbles are here? Because remember with probability, the total goes on the bottom. So you have to know the total, which is 9. I'm just gonna put 9 total here. The guy's getting closer and closer. Good thing I have a microphone today. Oh my goodness. It's like he has no idea I'm in here trying to work. How could he, right? So it says 1 marble is drawn and not replaced. What that means, let me explain what replacement is. If the marble is replaced, that means you pick it out and you say, okay, cool, and you put it back. So you could still pick that same thing again, right? There's still the same amount of marbles in the bag because I put the 1 back. But if it's not replaced, that means I pick it out and I leave it out, so now that's no longer an option. So it changes my probability because the total is now different, right? So let's say 1 is drawn and not replaced, and then a second is drawn. What is the probability they'll both be red? So let's figure out what's our probability the first one would be red. Well, if there's 2 red and there's 9 total, the probability of red is 2/9, right? Now that red marble is gone. It's no longer in the bag. So how many red marbles are in the bag now? Only 1, and there's only 8 total. So the probability of choosing red again is only 1 out of 8 because there's 1 missing. There's 1 red missing. So in order to find the probability of doing both, you just multiply them. And this is how you'll see it written. The probability of red equals, and you multiply the 2. And you end up with 2/72, and then it reduces to 1/36. Okay, so really your chances of picking red twice are kind of slim. Only 1 out of 36 that you're gonna pick 2 red in a row. So don't gamble, people. Example 2. 2 cards are drawn from a deck. They kind of assume you know how many cards are in a deck. There's 52 cards in a deck. So that's the total. What is the probability of drawing 2 aces? So there's 52 cards and there's 1 ace from each suite. So there's 1 heart, there's 1 diamond, there's 1 clubs, there's 1, what's the other one called? Spade, I think. Okay, so there's 1 of each. So there's 4 aces and 52 total. So they're saying, what are the chances you draw an ace twice? So the first time it's gonna be 4/52 because there's 4 aces and there's 52 total, right? But the second time, there's gonna be 1 missing, so it's only gonna be 3/51. And 4/52 reduces to 1/13 if you divide by 4 on top and bottom. It just makes it easier to multiply when you have smaller numbers. And then if you divide by 3 on top and bottom, you get 1/17. And so the probability of getting an ace and then another ace is going to be 1 over 13 times 1 over 17, and you end up with 1 over 221. So don't bet anybody you're going to pull 2 aces in a row, because you're probably not going to. It's a very slim chance. You could even change that to a percent or a decimal by dividing and see how small it is. Okay? So that takes us to where they kind of bring exponents into it. I want you to think 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. Okay, we know that. But I want you to think 2 times 2 is 4. That's also 2 squared. So this whole thing is about true or false. If there are 10 true or false on a test, what are the chances, if you're just guessing, which I don't know if some of you might guess sometimes, if you're just guessing, what are the chances you actually get all 10 of them right? It's going to be 1/2. Sorry. Those are independent, right? If you pick true for the first one, it's not like the next one has to be false. They could still be true or false. So those do not depend on each other. So it's going to be 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 all the way up to 10. Instead of doing 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, remember how I said 2 squared is 4, 2 cubed is 8, and so on and so forth? If you multiplied them all out, you'd get 2 to the 10th power in the denominator, because there's 10 of them. Okay, because it's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 1 times 1 to the 10th power is still going to be 1. So that's why I didn't, because technically it's going to be 1/2 to the 10th power, but I split it up, right? Because 1 to the 10th is still 1. So 2 to the 10th, if you do that on your calculator, you should have like an XY button or Y to the X button, and that should help you. I'm not there to show you, but I hope you can figure it out. And you'll end up with 1 over 1024. So please don't guess, because you have a very slim chance of getting them all right that way. And so there's also just a couple other things on there, but for the practice set, you're going to have to write your answers like with the slash to make a fraction. Just do your best, and obviously do it on paper first and then put the answer in. Don't try to guess without doing it on paper. All right, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.